You are cleared to enter. Welcome to Pizza Planet.
Welcome to Pizza Planet,
a Pixar podcast.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Gareth.
And we're your delivery guys.
Bringing you a square box of round, hot, cheesy Pixar goodness.
We've got a bounty of slices in today's feast, so let's dig in.
Welcome back.
Woo! Welcome back, y'all.
Hey, Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
It's been a long time.
It's been way too long.
So, update for our audience. We are back.
Yeah.
And I think that we're, safe to say, like, there are more episodes coming.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for your patience. If you're a listener who's been listening for any amount of time before this episode, thank you. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah.
And thank you for continuing to listen because we are making more content.
And then I want to say, before we jump into it, I want to say it is good to be back here because we are physically in the same room right now.
Oh, yes. This is the first episode we've recorded in the same room in well over a year.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's been a long time. So the end of season 2, well, the first 2 seasons we recorded in person in Gareth's basement, and the beginning of season 3 was remote. And so now we're back together under the same roof in Gareth's basement, at the same table, and in the same cold frigidness down here. Actually, it's not that bad. But,
yeah, it's not too bad. I have a finished basement, so it's kind of nice.
But it's good to be back with you, bro.
It's good to be back with you. Well, do you want to get into it?
Oh, yeah. So today we are talking about, drumroll please, Emma Coates, Pixar's 22 Rules of Storytelling.
So, Ben, tell me about Emma Coates' 22 Rules for Storytelling, because I think you're the one who really adopted these rules and became like a disciple of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I'm a wannabe disciple of these rules. What I will say is I'm a huge fan of these rules. I'm not an expert on the rules, but there have been a number that have stuck with me, I will say, as a creative. And so I'm a firm believer that that if you are a storyteller, you should definitely be familiar with these rules. And personally, I want to be more familiar with these rules because my work would be much better with my creative stuff. So, but I am a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of this list, and feel free to jump in. But from what I know about the background on these rules is that Emma Coates, who is one of the heads of story of Pixar, I assume she's still ahead of Pixar. She definitely was at one point. We'll have to look that up. But she a while back, I'm not sure like how long ago this was, but a number of years back, she tweeted these 22 rules of Pixar of Pixar storytelling. So this was her 22 rules of storytelling as Pixar, as how she learned from Pixar. If you go on her X account now, as it's called, she does say in her bio that she is the creator of these rules, but she wants people to know that she wishes that she called them not rules but guidelines, I think is what she says.
Quick fact check, Ben.
Yeah.
She does not work at Pixar.
No, R.I.P.
Anymore. Yeah, she did, obviously. But.
Well, whatever she's doing, I'm sure she's very successful because she's clearly very talented. When we dig into these, she's kind of a genius. But yeah, it's just kind of cool. It feels like kind of like behind the scenes, like she worked for Pixar, she learned all this stuff, and then she just literally tweets out this like storytelling gold of like, this is basically these 22 rules. This is how Pixar like makes so much of their creative decisions, and so it's like. Just like hats off to her for doing that.
Yeah, it's like putting a treasure map on the internet, being like, "Hey, good luck.
Yeah,
find the treasure."
Yeah, it's like not to be morbid, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna I could die any day, so here's just everything I've learned basically in my life. Like it feels like that much wisdom. So anywho, really excited today. We're gonna dive in. We're gonna talk about these rules. We're gonna go in order of her list and chat about it.
And specifically in relation to how we recognize their application and use in Pixar movies, because this is, after all, a Pixar podcast. These rules do come from Pixar, so this should be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious how many Pixar films we'll be able to draw ties to. And
Oh
all
yeah,
that, so.
yes, for sure. Well, do you want to get us started with rule number uno?
Numero uno. You admire a character for trying more than for their successes.
Okay, so you admire a character for trying more than for their successes. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that makes me think of Flick in Bug's Life.
Yeah.
Because he is, I guess, the whole idea behind his character is that he's a failure, right?
Yeah.
But we love him,
right.
and he's trying so hard.
I know, right?
So I don't know. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so many come to mind, but like, I was thinking about like, Remy trying to be the cook, and like everything he goes through. But you can really link it to so many. It's like Marlon trying to, find his son or trying to keep him safe from everything. It really is like, I guess the flip side is that like, yeah, like if the characters were always succeeding, I'm trying to think if there's an example of like where that's happened.
Well, yeah, I think what this rule illustrates is if you take away the success in any Pixar movie, if it has a sad ending, the characters are still completely intact. Like look at Marlon, because you mentioned him. Imagine if he didn't find Nemo and it was a sad ending. You would still be like, that man is a hero. That fish, rather, is a hero.
Right.
He still crossed the ocean to find his son.
Yeah.
And
right.
even if he wasn't successful, that makes him no less admirable as a character.
Right. Yes. That's a really good point. Yeah, I guess maybe that is what Pixar does so well, is that they have characters just like Flick who try so hard. Like they have these goals or they have these things that they want to do, and they're relentlessly trying to. Like I think about like Woody, like he wants so bad to be like in the first one, like Andy's favorite toy.
Yeah.
And then later on, he wants so bad to be there for Andy, or and so yeah, like that's really eye opening. I think how hard the characters are striving towards something.
Yeah. Well, Ben, what is rule number 2?
Numero 2. You got to keep in mind what's interesting to you as an audience and what's fun to do as a writer. They can be very different.
What's interesting to the audience may not be what's fun for a writer. I think that Ratatouille is a good example of this, because I mean, this is just me, but like that premise doesn't necessarily scream like passion project. Like a rat cooking doesn't sound like something where it's like, oh, this is gonna be fun to figure out. Like how are we gonna do this? But it is a joy to watch, and it's fascinating and like bizarrely like I don't know. For some reason, that's what that's what I thought of first was Ratatouille.
Yeah, that is interesting to think about. Yeah, it is interesting to think about. Like, I'm wondering if what they're getting at is like when you're writing, and we can relate, because we do film stuff and story stuff outside of this, is like, you always want to write the fun, like where there's the action scenes or just like the flashy kind of scenes, and maybe what they're getting at is like, you have to go with like what's natural to your story, and maybe somehow sticking to what's natural to the story ends up being more entertaining to the audience than just trying to arbitrarily throw in the scenes that you want to do. Or I don't know. That's a really tough one, because the audience would probably say with Pixar films that they are adventurous and they are hilarious, and like, so It's interesting how that works out.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely there's a line or a tightrope you kind of walk with this rule, where it's like there are not, it's not universally applicable, but there are certainly occasions where you're tempted to write something that you think is really cool, and then as soon as someone else is watching it and like looking at it and going like, I don't know, You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
This rule really is just distinguishing the difference in perspectives from the writer and the audience, which I think is interesting, given that I think later on in this list we're also going to see how similar the writer is to the audience.
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah, I guess wrapping that up, like I'm thinking about how like in a lot of Pixar films, there's always like towards the climax or like, you know, the third act or whatever, there's always that point where things are finally getting good and then there's like something that wham hits you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, I don't know, Toy Story 3, right? It's like the toys are about to die, or it's Inside Out, it's Bing Bong dying. Spoiler alert for those who see. Like, that would not be fun to write as a writer. You don't want to write those scenes.
Right. And yeah, like especially the trash incinerator scene in Toy Story 3. Yeah, I feel like that actually would be painful and difficult and just not at all cathartic to write. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like
no, for sure.
you would think that for the audience, we're reaping the benefits of what the writer was willing to put themselves through to make that scene happen.
The emotional turmoil. Yeah. All right. Well, what's number 3, Gary?
So, number 3, trying for theme is important, but you won't see what the story is actually about until you're at the end of it. Now rewrite. It's hard to say which movies went through this because obviously, like, we don't know the writing process. Mm-hmm. But after hearing Dan Scanlon talk about Onward, like I've talked about this a bunch on the podcast, I'm probably not going to stop. But I think it's safe to assume that he didn't have an armature for that film until the story had developed to a certain point.
Oh, do you want to define what that armature word is? By the way?
Yeah. Armature is basically just a more refined definition for like your movie theme, because it's in stop motion animation, like an armature would be like the what they build the puppet around, like the rigid skeleton that the clay is formed to, and that makes sure that, you know, that isn't going to move. So the clay is malleable, but the armature is rigid. And so if you think about that in terms of story, your armature is what you're building all of the malleable elements off of. And so it's important to have an armature when you're making a film. Now, the thing that this rule number 3 is kind of asserting is that the armature may not come until you've finished a draft of the script. Like you might need to see what happens once you try once and then see like, okay, like this isn't exactly working. Where is the heart of this story? What is the theme that we can then tear this all down and rebuild it off of this armature that we spotted? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
totally.
I think of it kind of like if you think of it in sculptural terms, your first attempt at a sculpture, every time you chip away at a piece of like rock or whatever you're sculpting, that piece can't go back on. Like it's permanent. Yeah. And so if you think of your first draft as your first attempt to create something that looks good, it may not look good, but you can see the vision. Like once you take your first attempt at sculpting, you're gonna see like, oh, like I think I know what to aspire for now, and then you use that on your second attempt.
Right, totally, yeah. And by the way, shout out to Brian McDonald for the armature phrase. He coins that. You should check out his podcast, by the way. Your Storyteller. Go check it out. But yeah, no. So I just was watching the video. I sent it to you. It's the Pixar in a Box course.
Oh yeah,
free course. That's highly recommended. By the way, another shout out. Pixar in a Box. It was a video with Pete Docter, and he's talking about Monsters Inc. and talking about how when he was writing and directing that, how the first draft basically was it was just exploring the concept of like, yeah, what if monsters scared for a living, and you know they clock in, they clock out, and he said like, you know, everyone would always laugh when he would pitch it, but when they made the draft and they were kind of like going through the story, or they may have even had a story reel that they were watching, or like an animatic. He said the audiences were basically saying like, this is not. Like,
why do I care about this?
Yeah. Where's the heart in this? Like, what's the point of this? And then he realized that he's like, oh, there's something with Mike and Sully, and specifically with like with them and Boo, and then he realized
Sully
that,
and Boo specifically is what he cited.
yeah, exactly, yeah, Sully and Boo, and he realized that it's really about becoming a father.
Yes,
and he was becoming a father in real life. And so, yeah, so that's a great example of like they did a rewrite, and then he found the theme of it, and
yeah, exactly. And so, so I guess we do have an example of how that rule has been used in Pixar.
Yeah.
But Ben, what is rule number 4?
Number 4 is once upon a time there was blank. Every day, blank. One day, blank. Because of that, blank. Because of that, blank. Until finally, blank.
So this is what Ben just read was Story Spine.
Yes.
So if you're not familiar with Story Spine, this is, again, a common practice at Pixar. When you're coming up with your premise, you kind of fill in these blanks. So what Ben just read was essentially the premise for a movie, but you can, for pretty much any Pixar movie, you can insert a character or an event into each of those blanks, and that's how like they had a launching board for the story.
Yes.
And this is what we put into practice. So Ben and I learned Story Spine actually years ago when we did our Camp Cryptid short. And
Story Experiential.
Yeah, we did Story Experiential. It's
it
a course put on by Pixar employees. And so we were learning Pixar storytelling. I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but we were learning Pixar storytelling from Pixar employees. We made our own story reel. And the way we developed that story reel was starting with the Story Spine.
Exactly. Yes, it's a great way to start your stories. And I don't know if we have time, but it'd be really cool if we could quickly just pick a Pixar movie and see if we can quickly insert the words.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
You want to do like WALL-E maybe?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So once upon a time there was a
robot.
Every day.
Every day
he collected trash.
Yeah, he collected trash on a. I guess the context would be like on Earth where it's
on an abandoned Earth.
On an abandoned Earth. Yep.
Yeah. Then one day,
it's been a while, but wasn't one day would be when Eve
shows up
yeah.
on a spaceship, and because of that.
He like catches onto the. Wait, why does he get on? Why does he climb?
Well,
the board?
he first what happens is he falls in love with her, so he starts following her around. Oh. Then because he loves her, he shows her the plant he found because he found the plant.
Yeah, and then she wants to take it back.
And then her programming basically makes it so that she just very quickly up and leaves. But then because of that, he
grabs onto the ship.
He grabs onto the ship. He hitchhikes to the Axiom where humanity is.
Because of that.
And then, because of that, a bunch of stuff happens on the Axiom where he eventually ends up saving humanity because the plant is the key to basically activating their homing beacon that sends them back to Earth or whatever.
So on the until finally would be... when they get back to Earth?
Yeah, when humanity is finally reunited with Earth.
Whoa, hey, there you go. Checks out.
Yeah, so we need to rewatch that movie soon and clear up some of the third act stuff that I forgot about.
We're like, stuff happens on the Axiom, and then they the homing beacon.
yeah, there's a lot that happens on the Axiom. But that first part... I think is pretty clean.
Yeah.
That first act, you can totally see how the Story Spine would have, been used for WALL-E.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, what's number 5, Gear?
Simplify, focus, combine characters, hop over detours. You'll feel like you're losing valuable stuff, but it sets you free.
Woo.
So I actually have a great example for this.
Yeah.
In Toy Story 2, I don't remember who I heard talking about this, but someone who worked on Toy Story 2, I know, has talked about the character Senorita Cactus. So originally, and this is kind of funny. We've talked about how Galen. What is her name? What is her last
Sussman.
name? Sussman, thank you. How Galen Sussman saved Toy Story 2 and that whole story that's become kind of Pixar lore.
Future episode, maybe we'll see.
Well,
maybe it's already been done, but
well, the funny thing is that the version that she saved is not the version we saw.
Oh,
like
it's
early so early in the film, because this is the version with Senorita Cactus. But she was eventually combined with the character of the prospector to create Stinky Pete. They basically consolidated characters because they realized they didn't need that many characters, and so Jesse was also kind of born out of that. I think that originally Bullseye was a talking character.
Oh, wow.
And so he was kind of turned into, I think, what is now Jesse, if I'm not mistaken.
That's crazy.
So
dang.
So they did a lot of changes to the Woody's Roundup characters throughout the development of Toy Story 2, and I think that's a perfect example of how they simplified, they focused, they combined characters, they hopped over detours, and I can see how the filmmakers at the time probably felt like we're losing this really awesome iconic character like Senorita Cactus. People are gonna love Senorita Cactus.
Yeah.
But now we got Stinky Pete and Jesse and the current iteration of Bullseye, and I think that's like great.
Yeah, that's really cool. A little background stories. I didn't know that. This really ties back to rule number 2 about what's important, what's interesting to the audience versus the writer, because you don't want to lose valuable stuff, right? As a writer, you don't want to do that. But it's not about you; it's about the audience, right? So I'm going to quote Brian McDonald so much, such a storytelling wizard.
Yeah.
But he talks a lot about you have to serve your audience. You have to serve your audience, and you have to just cut stuff. You have to kill your babies, if you will. So Brian shares this quick story all the time that there was this famous sculptor, and he made this beautiful this beautiful sculpture, and he was showing it to people, getting feedback, and everyone kept saying that they loved the hands. The way that the hands were sculpted was just so beautiful. And so the artist then went and cut off the hands off the sculpture because it was distracting from what he wanted to communicate through it. And so anyways, so that just illustrates a true artist is is unrelentless, with cutting the things that doesn't matter. And Pixar, again, this is another reason why they're the best, is because they cut out everything that's not essential. Yeah,
and that's a great example of how art is about communication and not just about impressing someone.
Totally.
I will say one other example I just remembered is for rule number 5 of combining characters and kind of simplifying things. I don't know if you remember hearing Pete Docter talk about early drafts of Inside Out. They had a gamut of emotions in the cast during early drafts, and they had to kind of par it down just to 5 basic emotions because it was just too many characters. So that's another one.
Cool.
Ben, what's number 6?
What is your character good at? Comfortable with? Throw the polar opposite at them. Challenge them. How do they deal?
You're the version of the 22 rules that you're reading off of is different than the one I'm reading off of. Mine says make them respond, and you said how do they deal?
By the way, we will put links in the description so you guys can check out these rules. But I did notice that when I Google it, there's not an official one place. There's kind of articles that all kind of have this, basically copied and pasted the tweet that she did.
Yeah.
Some of them are slightly different in wording, so this is an example where that happens. But I definitely, going back to Nemo earlier, I think that's a great example of Marlin is comfortable with safety and having Nemo right where he can see him, and so the opposite is his son getting kidnapped, and now he's having to go past the drop off into the dangerous. So
right. Well, and also, Marlin is vigilant, so he's paired with the incident-prone Dory.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And Remy is good at cooking, so he's paired with the talentless Linguini.
Yeah. So you're kind of saying like the opposite is like a character that's opposite of them, and how do they deal with that?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And another recent example would be in Elemental. Ember is really good at like bottling her feelings, so she's paired with an emotionally vulnerable character, which is Wade, who just like the first time she meets him, he's like openly crying.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really cool. Yeah, I was thinking of that rule as like throw the opposite as in like a challenge, which is also true. But what you're saying, I love, because it's talking about like throwing polar characters with each other. And you're right, that's in like so many of their films.
Yeah. Pixar is very well known for having like co-leads in movies. Like usually there's one main character, but the poster has two characters, oftentimes just side by side.
Yes, yeah.
And usually those two characters, if you look at them, you realize that the secondary character is specifically engineered to be a foil for the main character. You know,
you're
joy
totally
and
right.
sadness, Carl and upbeat Russell.
Yeah.
You know, like you have all these iconic pairings that are just polar opposites.
Yeah, Woody and Buzz, and even in Onward.
Oh yeah, Barley and Ian.
Barley and Ian. Yeah, that's that. There you go, man. See, this is really great, because I'm like, it's opening my eyes. I'm like, wow, that is clearly so important to Pixar, and it's something to really think about, like in your own stories, right? Like with characters. So
Yeah.
cool.
More Pizza Planet blasting your way after the break.
Take your next vacation in the #1 rated tourist destination in South America. The jungle surrounding Paradise Falls is home to over 8,000 species of local flora and 1,800 species of fauna, including the endangered Kevin bird. There's no shortage of adventure when exploring the area's vast array of wildlife. But don't forget that Paradise Falls is also home to the historic landing site of the Fredrickson House. Come take a guided tour of this celebrated home and learn about the extraordinary lives of Carl and Ellie Fredrickson, as well as Carl's noteworthy contributions to local conservation efforts. Book your vacation to Paradise Falls today. Your next big adventure is just around the corner.
Gone are the primitive days of feasting on fear and scoring scares. No longer is a monster measured by the horror that he inflicts. Because Monsters Incorporated is pioneering a whole new kind of energy to power your city. Come meet our talented jokesters, who are responsible for the Monstropolis power grid's 120% surge. I used to be a janitor and I told jokes to my mop. Now I tell jokes to kids and they love me. Think you got what it takes? Sign up for Monsters Incorporated's open auditions. I'm Monsters Incorporated. It's laughter we're after.
Hold on tight. We are re-entering the Pizza Planet quadrant.
All right. Well, what is number 7, Gary?
Come up with your ending before you figure out your middle. Endings are hard. Get yours working up front.
Mine has the word seriously after before come up with your ending before you figure out the middle. Seriously.
Oh.
Endings are hard. So
Yeah. So would Coco be a good example of this, where it seems like you almost had to have the ending in mind to figure out that middle part of that movie.
yeah, with Mama Coco and kind of all that. at the end.
Yeah. Like you kind of had to have a vision for where the story is going, like with the song "Remember Me."
Oh yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah.
You had to know what the finale was for that movie, I feel like, in order for the rest of it to fall into place. I don't know. That was the first thing that came to my head.
Yeah, dude, on that note, by the way, Remember Me. I was thinking about this the other day. I love that song, but literally in the lyrics, in the title, Remember Me is actually such a thread. This definitely proves that they knew what they were doing from the very beginning, because the whole idea with the in the land of the dead, like you have to be remembered to exist, and if you're forgotten, like then you go on to the final death or whatever. And so oh shoot, what's the
Miguel?
No, Miguel's
Hector?
his long lost grandpa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hector is literally like, he's begging to be remembered.
Yeah.
Remember me. Like,
Yeah.
dude. It's,
Wait,
like,
you never realized that?
I did not realize that originally. That I just thought it was like Remember Me just simply was like about Hector wanting his daughter Coco to remember him when he'd be gone, or like when he would travel. And then of course the song becomes more emotional when he plays it and she recognizes the song. But I didn't realize that it also serves as remembering when you die to be remembered. I didn't realize it meant that as well.
Oh, interesting.
So anywho, do you have any more thoughts on?
No, I just think it's I just think it's hard to say which movies apply to all of these rules sometimes, just because we weren't in the writer's room. But Coco definitely just to me stood out as something where it's like the middle part would just be utter nonsense without the ending.
I do think real quick. I will say I do think some if I was to push back on these rules a little bit, I will say I do think 7 does conflict a little bit with number 3 about trying for a theme and you won't see about it till you're at the end of it, because she just says, well, no, don't write it and then rewrite it. You have to know your ending before you start writing.
Well, I think first of all, I think a lot of these rules are meant to be conditional.
Yeah, that's true.
They're meant to teach you how to deal with different situations, different writing problems at different times.
That's true.
So I think that's part of it, but also if I were to apply all of these rules to one project all at once, the way I would interpret it is I write a first draft, and then when I start over, that's when I know what the ending is. That's when I know what the armature is. So it's when it says middle, I don't think it means your first draft, the middle of your first draft. I think it means once you're at the point of having a final draft, like you're ready to actually have like a more refined story, work on the ending before you work on the middle. I think that's more or less how I interpret it.
Yeah, and that is what she says. As I said earlier, she does say that there are more guidelines. And to your point, it's like if you ideally you know what your theme is, you know what your armature is, and if you're having issues finding it, then write it. And then like you said, when you go back, now you're like, okay, let's figure that out. Let's really let's make sure you hone in the ending. So
yeah,
cool. Alrighty, now we're on to number 8.
So number 8 is finish your story, even if it's not perfect. In an ideal world, you have both, but move on and do better next time. So this kind of goes right in line with what we were just talking about, where, it's important to just do a first draft, be okay with its imperfections, and then just keep going.
Yeah, keep honing it. Yeah, that's so true. We can see, like, I would definitely be curious to know, like, how many drafts a lot of Pixar films go through, because they do feel so refined.
Yeah.
When they do it right now.
Yeah.
So that I definitely would be curious as to, like, for some of the Pixar films that we do critique and we think like this could have used another pass. I wonder if that actually checks out. Like, I wonder if some of the films that didn't, be as strong as other films,
right,
if it was due to a lack of rewrites or
I actually think that this is getting into a whole rabbit hole, but I think that the movies that I think of when I think of movies I'm dissatisfied with, like Brave and The Good Dinosaur, movies that I famously think are kind of middling. I said famously, I'm not famous. But
other famous people agree with me.
right. But I think with both of those movies, those are instances of where there was a director change very late in the game. And so I almost feel like those were victims of too much rewriting, where it was not one single person's vision. It was just kind of like a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and so that's I feel like a whole rabbit hole. But I definitely do think that having a lot of rewrites is generally a good thing, especially if those rewrites are all done by kind of the same team.
I see. Yeah.
And I look at all the interviews I've seen with writers for various animated movies over the years, and not just Pixar. Everyone does like I'm guessing dozens of rewrites based on what I've heard.
Sure.
For like every movie, and you'll do like an entire storyboard for a version of the movie, like Toy Story 2. We were talking about like Senorita Cactus.
Oh yeah.
That was like already I'm pretty sure in the animation phase at one point, like I'm pretty sure they had animation of Senorita Cactus, if I'm not mistaken. And to at that point be like, this needs to change, we're rewriting it, is kind of a big deal, because you're accepting the fact that, if you continue down the path you're kind of walking down, you're going to end up with something that's not as good as what you could do if you just start over.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of Toy Story 2, we know that like the famous story about John Lasseter, I think he was like traveling or something like that, and then he came back and then watched the draft and was like, and it was a lot of development. I think they might have even had like final animation or at least a lot of animated work already done, and he literally was like, no, we are going back to literally back to the drawing board. We're scrapping all this out. And again, this just goes to show Pixar, like, being relentless. And like, I mean, that was a lot of work that was done, and most animation studios would say, no, we're not starting over. Like, it's just going to have to be what it is.
Right.
And they took the risks. So, definitely, they're following their own rules here.
Yeah. Number 9. Ben, what is number 9?
When you're stuck, make a list of what wouldn't happen next. Lots of times the material to get you unstuck will show up. That seems like a hack.
Yeah. So this one's really hard to like apply to existing movies. This is, I guess, more so a tip that makes sense in the moment when you're writing. But and again, we're not a fly on the wall in the Pixar writers' rooms. So
yeah, that seemed like a great. This is like you hear people talking about like you should always write your bad ideas down. People will say that, like, don't be afraid, like, because when you're writing, you don't want to be cliche. That's like the worst. You don't want to be cliche. You don't want to write just cheesy dialogue or whatever it is. That's always, at least for me, when I'm working on something, I think about that. There's that kind of advice of like write your bad ideas down, just get them out. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid of that. And I think this kind of falls in line with that of like you make a list of like what you don't think the character should do next, which seems counterintuitive, but I could see how, Pixar's so good at writing what seems natural when you're watching the film. Like, this is natural for the characters to do. But yeah, like maybe they did just like brainstorm all the things that shouldn't happen, and then it became clear what needs to happen. I don't know.
Right.
But well, let's move on. What about number 10?
So number 10 is pull apart the stories you like. What you like in them is a part of you. You've got to recognize it before you can use it. I definitely think, so I sat down and thought about this one a lot, and, for me, like, Finding Nemo, obviously, is my favorite Pixar movie, and just pulling out the theme of fatherhood and parental relationships is something I really, really love about that movie. And then looking at like Up and what it says about new life, and then Onward, and what it says about a brother's love, and Turning Red about how it relates its audience to its characters. Mm-hmm. But I also think this rule, the important thing to point out is how it can also be like sometimes the things you like about something can be superficial. So for me, I love the D&D aesthetic in Onward. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's nothing. I like, obviously you can't just make a movie with the D&D aesthetic and then I'm like automatically going to love it.
Right. Yeah.
But that isn't nothing,
Sure.
And The Incredibles came at a time in my life where I was obsessed with superheroes. So that subject material was important to me at the time. And so like, those are things that I think about when I'm like kind of pulling apart Pixar movies, and what I like about them is it's like they all have great stories, but oftentimes there's also elements of like whimsy and fun and creativity that I latch onto also.
Totally, yeah. No, that was well said. Yeah, I have not done a deep philosophical dive in what I like about. That's a great exercise to think about, like not only for Pixar movies, but like as a storyteller, like all stories, right? All whether it's books or movies, like that reminds me of I had a conversation with my brother where I was talking to him about like, you know, why a lot of movies that I say I liked, usually it's because there was like the theme right. Of the message was something that I felt like genuinely like I can apply to my life, you know, like you mentioned, you know, like with Finding Nemo, like, you know, if you're a parent, like learning how to like let your kids be free, like, but still love them and keep them safe. And then like, you think about like Up, you know, like how to process loss and how to like find something new in your life, or letting someone new into your life, you know, relationally. Like these are amazing themes that I think really make life better if you apply them. Like, and it's kind of subliminal, but I was talking with my brother about that, and he's like, I do not look at movies like that. He's like, I don't look at them as like you put it on the shelf and it's like, oh, this is you know, life wisdom. And I was like, that sounds kind of goofy when you put it that way, but that actually is what I'm doing. And I never thought about it the way that he put it, but I was like, that is totally how I view my movie collection. I never thought about it that way. But he's right. Like, it does sound kind of weird, but like that is totally, and I think that's probably what we all are doing on a subliminal level.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I relate to that a lot because I've had similar conversations with my brother. Now, he does definitely resonate with the wisdom of movies, but oftentimes he'll remind me, Gareth, I'm not analyzing every movie like you are. And so sometimes there will be just things that he likes that I don't, or things that I like that he does. But yeah, that's interesting. Like, yeah, there is a certain level of, you know, something we carry with us that's from within us. And that's what kind of endears us to the movies we love.
Totally, man. Yeah, for sure. Well, what's number 11?
Putting it on paper lets you start fixing it. If it stays in your head, just an idea, you'll never share it with anyone. Again, this is just like basic writing wisdom. There's not a lot we can relate to Pixar movies here, but just audience members, if you have an idea that you want to see come to life, it can't live in your head forever. You have to write it down.
Yes, totally. You do need to. And yeah, like I think about like, you know, like the Pixar directors, like, yeah, like if, you know, if Pete never processed being a new dad, or if Andrew Stanton never processed, you know, wanting to overprotect his child, or, you know, like with Onward with Dan Scanlon, like if he never processed his dad, like never meeting his dad, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like what would that have meant for, I guess, them personally? Obviously, Pixar would be missing out, and we'd be missing out. But like personally, yeah, that it's almost hinting at like, obviously the importance of just getting it out. But if it stays in your head, like I wonder if there's a therapeutic aspect of it too that is so important as well. You know, like, yeah, like, because I'm sure we have tons of ideas that we're just sitting on. But like if it's something that's really strong, if it's Pixar-esque, an idea, not only is the audience like missing out on something that you could share with them, some life wisdom, but also for you, right? Like that the therapy of like getting it out. I don't know. I think there's something important about that. So audience, share your ideas, as Gareth said.
Yeah.
Number 12.
Discount the first thing that comes to mind, and the second, third, fourth, get the obvious ones out of the way, then surprise yourself. I do want to apologize at this point in the podcast. If you cannot tell, I am sick, and my voice is starting to get progressively more raspy as we go. So, yes, I apologize to our listeners, but yes, rule number 12, discount the first thing that comes to your mind. Surprise yourself. I love this rule because, you know, it illustrates how a writer can, in a sense, be a part of the audience. Like I was talking about earlier on the podcast, sometimes when I'm writing, I don't know what's going to happen next, but if I'm excited about each turn, then the audience might be too.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's a high as a writer when you have those moments of like, oh my gosh, what if this happened?
Yes.
And it's a surprise to yourself what is coming out of your mind when you're writing.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, that hints at like the old saying of like tears in the writer, tears in the reader. You know,
Wait, say that again?
tears in the writer, tears in the reader.
Oh, okay. I've never heard that saying, but I understand it.
Yeah. It's like, like if you're really being like vulnerable and feeling it, like the audience will too. Like it'll translate.
Right.
And you're right. That is really fun when you can be surprised. That's something that's tricky because if you know your theme or your armature, and maybe you even know your ending, it's like technically you kind of know where you're going, but there's still room for surprise. I think that's something that a lot of people would say like, oh, I don't want to know where my story's going. It takes all the fun out of it. But it's like, no, you can still know where you're going and be surprised, right? So it's like, hey, I'm trying to get to heaven someday, but doesn't mean life won't be surprising.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I think that I do love the excitement aspect. It's fun.
Yes. Number 13, Ben.
Give your characters opinions. Passive, malleable, might seem likable to you as you write, but it's poison to the audience.
Yes. This makes me think of like a lot of writers will tell you, you need characters that have flaws or that are rough around the edges.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about opinions is that no two people share all of the same opinions. So that really makes a character feel like a real person. Sometimes there are characters that I really like, but I know that if I met them in real life, that we wouldn't get along, So like that's, I think, a testament to like really good writing when you have a character that's like, I like them, they feel so real and like interesting to watch, but like I know for a fact that we wouldn't get along,
Yeah, it's like specific personality.
Yeah. So that's what I get out of this rule. I'm curious, Ben, do you have off the top of your head know any like Pixar characters that like, can you pinpoint what opinions kind of make them feel real?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say like I did think about Dory, and I thought about how like her infectious optimism and like floofiness and just like her joy and her finding joy in the littlest things. I don't know. It seems like I guess I don't know if that's considered like an opinion, but it is something that that I don't know, is uniquely Dory. Like, you know exactly how she's going to act in a situation.
Real.
Yeah. So, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, what about like someone like Flick in A Bug's Life, where he seems to have really strong opinions about like how he can help his colony. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see how everyone kind of looks down their nose at him. And that makes him feel like such a real character, because it's like the people looking down their nose at him aren't bad people.
Yeah.
He's not a bad person. This is just a difference in opinion.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And that's what makes characters feel really lively and interesting to watch, because it's not necessarily about good versus evil in those situations, like where Princess Ada and Flick are not seeing eye to eye.
Yeah,
it's not like a good versus bad. You could see from either one of their perspectives.
I see. Yes, yeah.
They're just people with opinions.
With opinions. That's a really good point. You're right. It doesn't have to be something that's so stark.
Yeah,
it can be subtle. Yeah, I like that a lot. And I was gonna say another like writer rule that you hear a lot is that like you don't want characters to be passive. You want them to be like proactive, like characters that aren't actively trying to like pursue their goals.
Yes.
You know, and Pixar is so good at this because going back to like to Remy and how passionate he is to like be a cook, and Linguini is like passively trying to like he's trying to like make it in the restaurant and everything, and trying to be like not just a dishwasher. And so it's like they do a really good job of making characters super proactive. And I'm trying to think of like, I can't think of many times where the main character is like passive, because they write good movies. But they do a good job with that.
Yeah, very, very true. What is number 14, Ben?
Why must you tell this story? What's the burning belief within you that your story feeds off of? That's the heart of it.
Yeah, so I mentioned this before, but I love hearing Dan Scanlon talk about writing Onward, because so much of it comes from his relationship with his brother and the fact that they grew up without a dad. And while I've never heard Scanlon explicitly say this, I can imagine that a brother's love is sufficient was a core belief that fueled that film.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of when I think of like Pixar movies, is when the filmmakers have some core belief that comes from their own experiences, and that's oftentimes what makes a Pixar story beautiful and intimate, you know?
Totally, yeah. And that, I love how you put that, you know, you basically distilled the movie into one phrase, which is a brother's love is sufficient.
Yes.
Yeah, that's I love when I hear like a film distilled like that, because I'm like, dude, I can see that theme everywhere in the movie. Like, it's so succinct and well put. So yeah, that's awesome and so true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, like, because you think about, it's one thing to like know what the film is about, and again, I'm comparing this to writing because we do this on the side, but I think it's relevant. Is like, you know, you hear a lot about like, yeah, like, and we've already talked about this, right? Like, what is your theme? What is your armature?
Yes.
Right. Like, that's important. But this is not what this rule is saying. It's saying like, why must you tell the story?
Right.
And it's like, that's a whole nother element, and it's totally what you're saying, which is like, yeah, like he knew what the theme was, but he had experienced it.
Yeah, like no
Right.
one else could have made Onward.
Right.
In the same way that like no one else could have made Monsters Inc. when Pete Docter like had that revelation of like, oh, like this movie's about fatherhood.
Yes. Right.
So you see that down the line of all the best Pixar movies. Like another recent example, there's not as much behind the scenes stuff that I've heard with this movie, but like just hearing interviews of Domishi talking passively about Turning Red, I can tell she's the only person that could have made that movie. So
Totally,
I don't know what her like core, you know, belief behind like fueling that movie was.
Yeah.
But it certainly comes across that if anyone else had made that movie, it would not have been that movie, you know?
Totally. Yeah. That's so true, man. That's so good.
So what is number 15?
If you were your character in this situation, how would you feel? Honesty lends credibility to unbelievable situations.
Yes. I think for some reason this rule makes me think of Coco. Just because I feel like there's a lot of moments in that movie where you see like honest reactions to like heightened situations, and Miguel is just such a great surrogate for like the audience because his reactions are like pitch perfect. Like he reacts with wonder a lot, but also excitement, and eagerness, and curiosity, and confusion. And so I think that's the thing about Pixar movies, is that they're all fantastical to some degree, and so in order to ground them in a level of believability, their reactions from the characters just need to be what makes sense to the audience for those reactions to be. And that makes me think of Coco, because it's like it's about a kid who goes to the land of the dead.
Right.
Like that could be very, I don't know, difficult to pull off if you didn't have a character like Miguel who's just so, I don't know, optimistic and determined, and I don't know. It's just a very, very I think easy to see how this rule applies to that movie.
Oh, totally. That's a really good example, and it makes you think about like, you know, in addition to Coco, but like other Pixar films that have young protagonists, like in Inside Out with Riley, and
well, I would consider Joy the protagonist of Inside Out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, yeah, other main characters, and like, you know, Nemo, and there's a lot of young characters, and that they do that really well, where they somehow find a way to have like genuine, not only performances, but like, like the writing, like genuine reactions, capturing that like innocence, and I think that's a testament, because you know, the writers are not children,
right,
and they're able to do this. So they must really be tapping into, you know, like deep within them to figure out how they would react if they were young or whatnot. But what's number 16?
Number 16, what are the stakes? Give us a reason to root for the character. What happens if they don't succeed? Stack the odds against them.
Stakes.
Like, dude, you could go down the line every Pixar movie. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
Finding Nemo, Lost Son, Big Ocean. Cars may not make it to the big race. They have to fix the road twice. You know, in Up, like Carl may not fulfill his wife's lifelong dream. You know, like
Paradise Falls. Yeah.
It's just like everyone of Pixar's movies, at least like the ones that like shine brightest, I think they have this in spades.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. And like huge stakes too. Yeah, like you're talking about like, you know, for a lot of these characters, like death, you know, like if it's, you know, Marlin or like even Remy, like when he sees remember the shot where he sees all the dead rats in the window?
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, you know? So it's like the stakes are pretty intense.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. Yeah, I'm thinking through all the different Pixar movies. Like, think about like WALL-E. This is about like a tiny little robot that, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't still be functioning.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And he ends up saving humanity. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I feel like this is one of the reasons why Finding Nemo does to me feel like the most Pixar movie. Because like, just the stakes. I don't think you can get bigger than
the open sea and all the dangers. Yeah.
Yeah, like a little clownfish going across the ocean to find their son. Like that is just
Yeah, dude, you're right. It's amazing. That's a really good like storytelling wisdom is like, yeah, what are the stakes for your character and how do you make it that divide, right? Like that, like you're talking about like a divide of like, okay, what are the actual chances that he's gonna make it? Right? Like,
yes,
0.1%. He's actually gonna do this. Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah. Well, Ben, what is number 17?
No work is ever wasted. If it's not working, let go and move on. It'll come back around to be useful later.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, no work is wasted. So it's basically saying like you can, yeah, if something isn't working, don't fight it. Just let it go.
Right.
But so you may think, oh, that was wasted, but it's not wasted. And I'm guessing they're saying it'll come back around to be useful later. Maybe the idea may not come around later, possibly, but somehow that work will be worth it somehow.
Yeah, I can't think of any specific examples, and I may have heard this on like non-Pixar movies before, but I want to say I've certainly heard about like writers who will bring back elements from scrapped versions of movies for the sequel. If there's like a character or a story element, like a subplot or something that was written for the original movie, I feel like it's not uncommon for writers to go back to that script and be like, hey, like maybe this would work for the sequel.
Yeah, right, totally. Yep, absolutely. And even, I forget what rule that was, where the combining characters one, that was episode 5. That was an example, like with Toy Story 2, you know, that was technically something that was they let go of the cactus character, Senorita Cactus. I need to see a picture, by the way, if there is one online.
Yeah, there's pictures.
Okay, I'll check it out. But yeah, basically, you know, they let it go. It was useful because it helped to make the inspector. So
more alien slime coming right up.
Has anyone ever told you you can't do something? Don't let the cynics of the world stop you from doing what you love. And if what you love is cooking, then we have a book for you. New from By and Large Publishing, 5-star chef and best-selling author Augustus Gusteau has a message for the world. Anyone can cook. That's right. This provocative and insightful text is more than just a cookbook. It's a carefully crafted literary experience designed to draw the inner artist out of cooks of any age. Whether you're a seasoned chef or a blossoming baker, Gusteau's bold philosophy on the culinary arts will get your creative juices flowing. Pick up your copy of Anyone Can Cook from wherever books are sold.
Can you hear that? Low rumble of engines coasting down the freeway on a breezy Sunday. The lush crunch of a tire making contact with a gravel road of unexplored possibilities. Feel the cool wind and smell the sweet sun-baked desert air as you accelerate down the timeless route. Witness the awe of the mountains protruding from the earth like beckoning palaces of crimson stone. Your road might be long, but it doesn't have to be hard. Make every moment driven by purpose at Radiator Springs, Arizona.
This fake ad has been fake paid for by the fake Radiator Springs Tourism Commission. Here's your refill. Enjoy the rest of the show.
But yeah, what's number 18?
So you have to know yourself. The difference between doing your best and fussing. Story is testing, not refining. I actually really like this wisdom because it's like it's hard to recognize that distinction when you're working on something and it's like you keep coming back to it. Is it because you want to do your best or is it because you're fussing? Like there's a difference between testing because you're like, is this working? And then refining, which is like, I guess in this case, they're equating it to like just needlessly going over the script again and again, like a perfectionist and never being satisfied.
Right. Yeah. That's a really, really good rule. I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like knowing the difference between perfectionism and doing your best.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a fine line.
Ben, I can confess to you right now, I'm a perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist.
It's been 2 weeks since my last perfection.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's like, that resonates a lot because you have to be able to recognize when it's necessary for the story or if it's just like you and your pride, you know?
Oof, yeah. Jeez. Yeah, holy moly. That's some deep stuff.
What is number 19, Ben?
Coincidences to get characters into trouble are great. Coincidences to get them out of it are cheating. This was a rule we talked about a number of episodes ago.
Oh, well, I do have an example.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to the well of the incredibly deep well of Finding Nemo because it's the perfect movie.
Yes, indeed.
But you look at the sequence at the beginning of the movie, a diver showing up at the drop-off during Nemo's field trip is a coincidence. And that's okay because it caused nothing but trouble.
Yes, right.
That was the catalyst for the whole movie, if you recall.
Yeah.
But contrast that moment when Nigel saves Marlin and Dory at the end of Act 2. This easily could have been a coincidence to get them out of trouble. But it's not. Because the story establishes Nigel as a character with motives and means prior to that scene.
Oh, nice. Yeah, totally.
So rather than feeling like a piece of like divine intervention, it feels like an organically earned way to move the story forward.
Yes. This is why, also, this is for the 500th time, this is why Pixar is so much better than so many other animation companies, because you're 100% right. I can think about movies where there's something swoops in, and then you get the sense of, like, you can feel it within you. You're watching it all, and you're like, yes! And then you're like, oh, why am I not excited? Why did that just, like, sugar crash? Like, what's going on? That is exactly why, because it was an unearned, saving thing.
Yeah, and so that's what Pixar is great at, I think. I think if this is something, here's an exercise for our listening audience. Think of your favorite Pixar movie, and then I want you to think about the instances where characters ended up getting into trouble, and then the instances where they ended up getting out of trouble. And I want you to think about like the factors in the story that are coincidental and that are kind of reinforced with story structure. And I think you're gonna see most of the time it's going to be like that analysis I just gave with Finding Nemo. Like there's very rarely not like justification when characters are coming out of trouble or being rescued or something like that.
Point. Yeah. That's really, really good. Yeah, I'm a little unfamiliar with Finding Dory, but I know there's the scene with the semi and something happens. They're driving the semi. I don't know what happened. If memory serves me right, I feel like maybe that was a situation where it was like unearned, but I don't want to commit to that because it very well could have been a legit reason. But.
Pixar, you broke my heart.
Yeah, I've watched that movie somewhat recently.
Oh, okay.
I think, I don't know if it was so much a coincidence as it was bizarre. Like watching an octopus drive a
semi. Yeah.
A semi. I don't know. We'll have to get into that movie at some point.
Yeah, we'll save it. But yeah, no, that's really good. All right. What about number 20?
So number 20 is exercise. Pump it up. Pump it up. No, I'm kidding.
1 and 2.
Exercise. Take the building blocks of a movie you dislike. How do you rearrange them into what you do like?
This sounds like a perfect
Pitch.
This sounds like a perfect picks pitch for someday.
Are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say maybe. I was gonna say this is a great time for me to picks pitch a future picks pitch. There's a lot of picks pitches going on for a future episode where we take a movie like Cars 2 or something like this that I think could definitely be better, and then we rearrange it.
Dissect it and break it down, rebuild it. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I thought you were gonna say The Good Dinosaur because I just remember. So I think maybe we talked about this when we last talked about The Good Dinosaur on the podcast. I don't remember, but Ben and I saw that movie in theaters with our friend Andy.
Yes.
And as soon as the credits started rolling, all three of us were just kind of like, that movie could have been better.
Yes.
And immediately started pitching how we would, like, literally exactly what this rule is saying to do was what we were doing, where we were taking the elements of the movie that were like, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good. Now let's rearrange it. Let's take out some of the unnecessary stuff and let's put this here and put this here. And it was very cathartic. Like we, by the end of the credits, we had like rewritten the whole movie. And I think it was a good example of how you can, like earlier we were talking about, like the things you like about a movie are the things that you should latch onto. And like in that case, it was like, there are things here that we like, and it just didn't add up. Like its net sum didn't serve us, you know?
Totally. Yeah. I remember that now. Yeah. I remember I sat down with Andy one night in our apartment, and I literally opened up like a Word doc, and I like titled it like Good Dinosaur, like rewrite or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And that's all that being on the document. We never wrote any more, but we just talked about it. So yeah, that was a good time.
All right, Ben, what is number 21?
You got to identify with your situation / characters. Can't just write cool. What would make you act that way?
So I think the key word here is just, because it's okay to write cool as long as it's compelling. I think that's the stumbling block a lot of writers run into. It's like they make the justification simply because it's cool, but cool shouldn't be the justification. It's just the bonus, you know?
Oh, okay. Yeah, totally.
So this makes me think of Remy, because a rat that cooks is perhaps a cool premise to some people, but Ratatouille doesn't rest on its laurels. It informs the audience about who Remy is and what drives him to cook. So it's much more harrowing than just seeing like a mind-blowing premise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You could have just made Ratatouille about like, how incredible is this? It's a rat that cooks.
Yeah.
But the movie is so much more than that, because Brad Bird understood this rule that that's not enough. You need to have a lead character that you can identify with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And and they talking about, identifying with the situation and with your characters, again, this gets back to earlier, we were talking about like, making the stories like personal and what's the burning belief within your story, and talking about like onward and, why must you tell the story? It's similar to like, she says, what would make you act that way? So it's very similar in that you have to really make it real and personal. And like, for Remy, like you have to, you have to tap into like, what does it mean to do something in life where, you're the oddball out, and, what you're wanting to do is so, like the goal is so unbelievable, or the odds are stacked up against you. Like you have to kind of get to that kind of, figure out that emotion, or figure out like how you can relate, and then tap into that. I would imagine that's what they're doing, right? When they're writing these scenes where, Remy's acting in a certain way, or talking to Linguini, and it feels so like raw and real. They're obviously identifying with it, and that, I imagine that must be a pretty cool psychological exercise to do that.
Yeah. Well, Ben, what is the last rule on the list of the 22 rules of storytelling?
Oh man, we're done already. Just getting started. Number 22. What's the essence of your story? Most economical telling of it. If you know that, you can build out from there.
Essence, theme, North Star,
armature.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have. It's crazy that this is rule number 22, because this feels like potentially the most foundational rule.
Yeah.
Because you gotta have something fundamental about your story. Some notes that I made, I was like trying to think like, what are the armatures in Pixar movies? Like what are their North Stars? And I thought of Bug's Life, because I think standing up to bullies is fundamental for that movie. Like for The Incredibles, letting go of the past and focusing on the now is a fundamental theme in that movie.
Yeah.
And Inside Out, acceptance of grief is fundamental. And so like again, exercise, think of your favorite Pixar movie, audience, and what do you think is the North Star of that movie? Because I'm guessing that you can easily tell, because like you look at any Pixar movie, you can pretty much tell what the filmmakers are trying to say. And that is how you write a movie. That doesn't just that's not like a bonus that happens like, hey, we made a movie and it ended up having a positive impact.
Yeah.
But that impact that it had was engineered.
Yes, right. Yeah, totally. You're absolutely right. And finding you're talking about like the North Star. So it seems like, so the North Star, I would say, of like for a Pixar film, that is what's helping them make it the most economical, right? Like what they're talking about in this rule is about cutting the fat, right? Cut the fat. What's the essence? What's the most economical way? And then you can build from there, right? So you mentioned, like what's your foundation? What's the structure? What's the armature? And then you can build on like filling the gaps or adding the D&D, right? Like add the layers, but like you're building on what is the core. So what you're saying is like the answer to that. Well, how you do that is you have your North Star, and then you only build what you need.
Yes.
From the North Star.
Yes, that takes you towards it.
Yeah.
Because if you build south or east or west, that's going to get you further away from the North Star.
Yeah, right. That's true. And this makes me think of the what are they called? The Little Golden Books.
You know? Yeah.
And dude, okay, if you're a Pixar fan, and especially if you have kids, you should look into the Pixar's. They make their own line of little golden books where you can literally buy like for all their films.
Yeah, we have Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. I think those are the only Pixar ones we might have.
Yeah, and it's I highly recommend. It's really cute, but I highly recommend actually checking them out, especially if you're just interested in this the storytelling craft, because it is literally rule number 22. You flip the page and it's all the most important beats, right? It's only like 10 pages. It's like a small book. So they only have the most important beats of the story.
Right. They've condensed it down. They've boiled it, distilled it into its essence.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I feel like the fact that they can do that just proves that like that they're following their own rules, but also like you could almost use that as a hack. Like you could almost say like, hey, you're working on a story. You could say, let's make the Little Golden Book now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then build off of that.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I recently read the Little Golden Book for 101 Dalmatians.
Hey, that's not a Pixar movie.
And yeah, I had the same thought of like, this is so amazing. They took like a feature-length movie and just took just a few pages to tell that same story, but they told it perfectly without missing anything.
Wow.
Like it's like it still has all of the key elements that make that story great, but it's like we keep saying, it's distilled. So I don't know. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's really that's not easy to do. So wow, we made it through.
We made it through all 22 rules of storytelling. Good job, Ben.
Good job, brother.
Well, closing thoughts. Go look at the list for yourself. Like Ben said, we'll link it in the show notes.
Yep.
And do some of those exercises that we suggested. Like, find out how like these rules apply to your favorite Pixar movie, because it will not only grow you as a writer if you are an aspiring writer, not assuming you are, but it will increase your appreciation for sure for these movies, because it's not the most simple thing to write a Pixar movie, as you have now heard. These 22 rules. There's a lot that goes into it. So
yes, yeah, that's absolutely. And yeah, like we kind of talked about earlier, as an exercise, take a Pixar film that you love, and like Gareth said earlier, like figure out why you like it. Like what's what is the theme of it? What's the armature of it? And how does that relate to your own life? When we did our lava letters, on Onward and Up, that for me it was really cool to see why I love Up so much, and it was also kind of cathartic to find what areas in my life that I related. And so definitely. Just to pulling out a couple of those rules. Find the essence of these amazing Pixar films. Find the ones that you relate to, and see if you can figure out what is the North Star. It's just a fun little exercise to do. So
yes, and also if you aren't already, make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure if you're not subscribed to our feed for our podcast feed or YouTube or whatever, make sure you subscribe, because more content is coming.
Yeah,
it has been a while. I for anyone who hasn't been keeping track of time, it has been over a year since we've consistently released episodes.
Wow. Yeah,
we released 2 episodes in 2024.
Yeah,
with hopes of doing more than that, but we weren't able to. But now we are finally going to be doing more episodes. And trust me, there will be more than 2 episodes this year.
Yeah, yes. Get ready for regular content. Season 3 is back, y'all.
And I don't think we have anything else. Do you have anything else, Ben?
I don't think that. I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much again for listening and joining along on this journey with us, for being a part of our Pizza Planeteers pack. And as Gareth said, subscribe, leave us a review. Actually, that'd be kind of cool. We don't have any reviews on Apple Podcasts, so
don't we have one?
We have no. We just have some ratings, but no reviews yet.
I thought Luke wrote one.
Maybe he did, or maybe that was on Facebook. I don't know. I can't remember now.
On somewhere he wrote a review, I'm sure. Someone
love you, Luke.
Write us a review on Apple Podcasts. Ben,
and with that,
keep it in for Onward,
because adventure is out there.
Just keep swimming
to infinity
and beyond.
Pizza out.